Hi, Clyde Saluma Sharady here from Africa Media Australia. As you may be aware, recently a group of 6 young African men led by Daniel-Haile Michael took Victoria Police to court on claims of abuse and discrimination. The case didn't go on trial. Victoria Police agreed to settle the matter, and as part of the settlement, Victoria Police agreed to hold a public inquiry that will look at 2 things. One, it's multicultural training, and the other being its field contact. That is how police interact with members of the community on the street. AMA recently organized an interview with the 2 key people, and that is Chief Commissioner Ken Lay, the number 1 at the Victoria Police, and Daniel-Haile Michael, who took the case to court and representing the other 5 young African men. This is an exclusive interview for AMA that was undertaken in the office of the Chief Commissioner Ken Lay on Flinders Street, Melbourne. The interview will be published in 2 parts. The first part goes for about half an hour and talks about the case and everything else that went around it. And the second part will talk about the inquiry. I will let you watch the interview, and I will see you on the other side. Commissioner, thank you very much for giving us the opportunity to come and talk to you. And we're just going to have a chat about some of the issues affecting the African Australian community, specifically the recent court settlement between Victoria Police and a group of 5 young African men who are represented here today by Daniel. So it's a pleasure. We'll start with a simple question. Commissioner, can you summarize to us the actual agreement that was reached?
Look, there were some parts of the agreement that are confidential and that I can't talk about, and neither can Daniel, but there was certainly an agreement that Victoria Police would review the way we handled our field contacts. We'd ask someone to come in and do some work about that, but also ask some people to have a look at our cross-cultural training as well. We want to take this as an opportunity to learn to do things better, so the whole community will have an opportunity to have some input into this work, and in the very near future we'll be inviting submissions from the broader community.
So 2 things. One is reviewing the training, multicultural training, and the field contact. All right. Daniel, were you satisfied with this agreement that was reached?
I think we'll definitely believe it's a good step in the right direction. We're eager, I'm particularly eager to see what recommendations that Victoria Police take up from the community, because a lot of the times I think we've found that we've been talking about each other, but now it's kind of
talk to each other. Yeah. All right, that's good. Obviously, this court case was about claims against Victoria Police in relation to discrimination, racial profiling. Commissioner, do you believe that racial profiling exists within Victoria Police or has existed?
So Clyde, I'll go back a step. My understanding was the case was about some alleged assaults by police and some discrimination issues, and that's the issue of racial profiling was certainly brought up in the way we did some of our business, particularly around Operation Malto. Look, I don't believe racial profiling does exist in Victoria Police, but I know with Operation Malto, the piece we missed was we didn't communicate with the broader community about exactly what we wanted to do. We were faced with a situation where I think we had about 20 or 30 victims who described the perpetrators of some robberies as being young African men. Now, we actually put that description in our operation orders to help our police understand who the suspects were. Now, in hindsight, we could have communicated this to the community a whole lot better, and I suspect it would have saved much of the angst and problems that we've had since those times.
But do you believe that the fact that that Operation Molto sort of targeted, young African male that
That's without a doubt, Clyde. The operation order actually described the suspects for these armed robberies as young African males, and that resulted in our members actually focusing on young African males to try and prevent these armed robberies.
Anything you want to say about that?
I'd just like to ask you to define what your understanding of racial profiling is.
Yeah, well, I think racial profiling is where police target a group of people, in this case young Africans, because of their race.
Yeah.
I'd argue that in this case we actually targeted a group of people that were described as our suspects for this, for these robberies. Now, I understand there's a number of schools of thought around this, and I also understand that we'll probably not get to a space where we both agree about whether it was racial profiling or not. I'm certainly keen to move forward from it, learn from it, and get better at the way we do our job.
Are you also aware of some of this work that Professor Ian Gordon, report that Professor Ian Gordon from Melbourne University has done? And you've seen those stats that say that African young males in the area of Flemington, Kensington and North Melbourne committed less crime, but were actually pulled over, two and a half times more likely to be pulled over. So that kind of clearly states that there was an issue of racial profiling in that area at that time, and yet you're still in a way denying that racial profiling was actually acted upon by Victoria Police. So
yeah, this is a problem we get to when we end up in civil litigation, and one of the reasons why I was really keen to settle, we have a situation where one side puts up their experts and describes a situation, the other side puts up their experts that have a different view, and I know Victoria Police also had an expert that suggested that our actions weren't actually racially profiling. So it was simply not taking us anywhere. It wasn't solving the problem. It wasn't allowing us to get rid of the civil case and actually get on with engaging the community. And that simply wasn't going to happen until the case was settled. So again, we come back to this piece about what's racial profiling, what's not. I'll be really keen to get the views of the broader community and the work we're doing to better understand the community's views, and hopefully we'll be in a position to better articulate what our views were. But this constant conversation about was it racial profiling, wasn't it racial profiling, isn't getting me to a situation where Victoria Police can actually get better in engaging with young African men.
I understand we also have to look forward to see what can be done to improve the situation. But people say, well, if Victoria Police does not recognize that racial profiling existed, then it does not provide any hope that the inquiry and anything else that is coming is going to result in a positive thing.
Yeah. Look, I understand that, Clyde. So, look, let me put it this way. Let's get the community's views. Let's hear their views, and I'm more than willing to look at it, read it, listen to it, and come to a conclusion. But I don't want to get stuck in a discussion about semantics that stops us from making Victoria Police better and helping the community to move on for what's been a really difficult time.
In hindsight, do you think that Operation Molto was maybe a mistake?
Look, we had a very real problem. We had a large number of armed robberies in and around the Flemington area. There was a lot of pressure on us to actually resolve the issue. What we didn't do well was engage with the broader community. We tried to solve the problem with a policing response, when in fact the problem may well have just as easily or better been solved by engaging with families, engaging with young people, trying to find the solutions within the families, within the communities, rather than simply a policing response. I think that's where the mistake was made.
Daniel, have you got anything specifically you want to say before we move to the next question?
Are you aware of the background to this case and how long it's taken these young people to kind of get to that stage?
Yep.
And the amount of community support they've had to have to actually get that far.
Yep.
So to kind of say that you want to hear what the community is saying, I think the fact that this case, or the fact that these young people have gone through all the mechanisms of getting justice, and still, in their eyes, they still haven't seen any justice for themselves. And so what they've done is said, okay, maybe for our generation, okay, all the wrongs that have happened, let's not worry about that, but let's worry about the next generation that's coming. And so what they've decided to do through this racial profiling civil case was to ensure that racial profiling, in their eyes, did not impact the quality of life of their offspring. So there's a really strong message coming from these young people saying that we've grown up with racial profiling in this area. We can't get any justice for it, so we're going to take a civil case and ensure that the next generation doesn't have to face these issues. So when you say to us that you want to hear from the community what they're saying, isn't all the information that you need already there?
Yeah, I think it probably is. We need to get better at listening, there's no doubt about that. We need to be better engaged. Look, I think we've taken some fairly significant steps in the I think it was 7 or 8 years ago this matter started, and you rightly point out that it's taken an enormous amount of time and money to get it resolved. But when you look at some of the programs that we've got in place now, I think we're far better situated to ensure that we don't get into this same situation again. Now, having said that, Victoria Police is a big organisation. This is a very complex community right across Victoria, and from time to time our members will let us down. We need to understand that. We need to work hard to make sure that that doesn't occur on a regular basis, or in fact at all. But I think you're right. The solutions are in the community. We've certainly seen with some of our neclos, who work very closely with the community, they've solved an enormous amount of problems for us by being able to act as a bridge between Victoria Police, young people's families, engaging with the families to help solve problems, rather than us to have the traditional policing response, which is sometimes doesn't solve the problem, often doesn't solve the problem.
Yeah.
The solutions appear to me to be within the communities. And again, if we go back to the civil case, I was very keen to put this behind me and Victoria Police so we could move to this next stage. We're bringing in some people with independent expertise to look at the way we do our business. The community will have an ability to provide information and comment on that. No doubt the issue about racial profiling will be raised. We'll take the good advice from the community, the experts, people with human rights backgrounds, to make sure that we're in a place that young people in the African community can feel much more engaged, much more comfortable with their police force, and to ensure that we don't end up in a sad situation like we did with your particular case and the young men that were involved in your case.
Commissioner, you just mentioned there that this case has taken quite a long time. Can I ask why the Victoria Police hasn't chosen to possibly settle the case earlier? Why did it take this long to be able to settle the case?
Firstly, let me make the point about legal proceedings. Legal proceedings often result, or always result, in a winner and a loser. To solve the issues the Victoria Police was facing and the African community was facing, there didn't need to be a winner or a loser. There needed to be a willingness on both sides to actually work together to resolve problems. So certainly when I was thinking about what the next stages were with this matter, we had an option to invest further into the case and drag it on and test every last piece of evidence. I just couldn't see any value in that. Not only was it financially irresponsible, but it didn't allow us to be in a position where we could engage with people like Daniel, with the other people involved in the action to try and solve these problems. It didn't create an environment where we could.
And which brings me to another question that has come across to some of the people that I've spoken with, saying that in their understanding, Victoria Police probably settled the case because it has taken, financially it was becoming too costly, and also that Victoria Police did not want to be scrutinized in its operation and processes. What do you respond to people who say like that?
Look, I can understand why people think that. That's not the case. Clearly the financial implications were a consideration, but certainly from my point of view, I could see no point in dragging this out for another 4 or 5 years, and to put it through the courts and wait until these young men were approaching middle age before the jolly thing was resolved. That simply was not the right thing to do. The other piece about opening ourselves up for our policies and procedures, that's exactly what we're doing with this inquiry. We'll be giving the community, we'll be giving independent experts clear visibility of this, asking them for advice around the 2 key issues about how we can get better. So I don't accept the fact that we didn't want people looking at our policies and procedures. People can get access to that information at any time. So this was about trying to move on, trying to get better, and try to heal some of the wounds which were clearly fairly deep with some young African men.
One of the things that also comes across from the community is obviously the issue of trust between Victoria Police and the community, and all these issues that have happened have to a large extent increased the mistrust between the two. And it is also obvious from some of the things we see in the community that Victoria Police is engaging a bit more with the community, but people say that that engagement has not resulted into an actual change with regards to the operations on the field, how police interact with people and especially Africans. What have you got to say about that?
Look, I'm not sure that's right, Clyde. I think we're far better these days than we were back in 2006, and there's lots of examples of really strong relationships between the African community and Victoria Police. It's true to say that time to time we let ourselves down. Some people let our organisation down, and we need to continue to work very hard to weed those people out and take appropriate action. And you'd be aware that there are some people that do the wrong thing, and we try very hard to take appropriate action.
For those who do the wrong thing, do they actually get punished, disciplined?
There is a discipline process that we can go through. There's criminal processes we can go through, and I think we've got 7 current criminal cases where there are suggestions or allegations of clearly inappropriate behaviour, language, and actions towards young Africans. So yes, we do take that action, but one of the difficulties in these cases, and I'm sure Daniel found this in his experiences back in 2006-07, is when we find ourselves in a situation with one word against another, it can be very, very difficult to find our way through that problem. And often often it's about increasing the engagement and the understanding of our members about some young people that have come through some often fairly difficult and traumatic circumstances. Often our members don't understand that. We're trying to get better at that. But I suspect, well, I know that we're better at it. I know personally that there's some very, very good examples of police working with communities at the local level, at the higher level, at the very strategic level, to try and get better at this. There's a very good understanding that we don't hold the answers. The answers actually sit within the African community.
Daniel, in your experience with some of the members of the police force in Flemington, did you have a feeling that at least for some of them, they were acting sort of from a personal level rather than as a result of what they're being encouraged or the policies within the force? What's your insight in relation to that? I know it may be difficult to say.
I grew up with a lot of police officers in my neighbourhood, so there was a range of officers. There were some who just actually enjoyed picking on us, and he was saying, "You guys aren't going to move out of here. You're going to be in these flats forever." And the funny thing is, I think I kind of felt sorry for him because he felt, well, in my opinion, I think he felt like he didn't belong in the police force, and he wasn't actually of Anglo-Saxon origin, and so he was trying to fit in by in front of the other cops, being the tougher one than everybody else.
Yeah.
And then you had officers who, by day would talk to you normally, you'd have a good conversation with them, but by night, all of a sudden, it's a different story. It's like you don't know them, and they get quite aggressive. And then there's ones who are just, happy-go-lucky, that you don't have any problems with at all generally. But the issue was, for me growing up, that it wasn't just myself who was assaulted, it was everybody I knew in my neighborhood. And then on top of that, there was no way of making them accountable for what they did. Absolutely none. And we've gone through, this is 6 years down the track, and there has been no single case that I know of where the police officers have actually been held to account in any way. In some ways, in some cases, I've even heard of police officers being promoted, being moved on to other police stations and being promoted. And I'm also aware of the fact that Flemington is actually a training ground. A lot of the new recruits actually go there. And so when I look at all of this, I'm thinking, is this Victoria Police's policy? Is this how you want to kind of teach the new recruits how to behave with, especially newly arrived communities? And so growing up, it was like, there's no accountability. You're getting picked up all the time. And so you're going to be treated like a criminal almost every time you
tend to act like one.
Yeah, and so there was that issue as well.
And has anything changed? Obviously, back in 2006, as the Commissioner said, there may have been quite a lot of issues in recent years, over the last couple of years or so. Do you see any? Obviously, it may be a different experience, but do you see any change from where you're standing?
So I don't live in Flemington anymore, so I'm not in contact with the police as much. But what I have noticed is they're doing a lot of community engagement activities. So there's soccer programs and stuff like that they run on the ovals. In terms of accountability, I still haven't heard of any police officer being held accountable for any of their actions. One of the sad things is just a couple of months ago I heard that the younger brothers of some of my friends were actually told to line up and were told to lay on their knees. And a police officer, this was because they were called into the police station. All of them told to line up because they committed a crime. And then they were told to stand knees on the ground, and this officer took a photo of them and left. And so you know, these incidents are still occurring, and that's what's quite discouraging. And so, you know, you try and persevere. You try and kind of tell these young people that either move out of Flemington and try and move into other places. But that's hard because financially, there's a lot of financial barriers and all these issues. So I guess we're trying to work as hard as possible with the police to improve the situation, because at the end of the day, the police officer goes home, nothing happens to him. A young person is further traumatized and disengages from society.
All right.
Just a couple of issues there. I'm aware of a number of cases where we've actually moved police members on to other areas as a result of their inability to form good relationships, or a lack of a leadership of their people, which have resulted in some difficulties with engaging with communities. I'm not quite sure of that issue you explained in relation to your friends' brothers. I probably need to understand that better, and I'd be keen to follow that up after today. But certainly from where I sit, and from what I understand, and from what I see in Flemington, it is a very, very different place than what it was back in 2006-07, and I would be very hopeful that some of the things that occurred in the time that we're talking about simply wouldn't occur now. But having said that, I think Daniel makes the point, and rightly makes the point, about some people still not being treated fairly. And as I say, we're a big organisation, and we need to be able to make sure that our people understand their obligations, that members who behave in this manner are held to account by not only the broader community, but by their peers, the people in the police station. And that's what actually drives the culture. It's when other people they're working with say that is not appropriate. And I know that's occurring on more and more often, but it disappoints me that Daniel talks about some matters that he's hearing about that are still occurring. And again, this just underlines to me how important this is to get it absolutely right.
I'll ask you one more question, then we'll take a break. With regards to the way police's behavior or interactions with the community is concerned, how do you, as the commissioner sitting on top of the force, would be able to actually verify what effectively the general members of the police are doing on the ground? If there's a claim of racial profiling, how do you get to check that? What sort of mechanisms you have to verify that sort of thing?
You usually do it through data, through the number of complaints that come into Victoria Police, often complaints from the legal community centres and the like, to understand that issue. The other piece is that I have access and meetings with community leaders. If there are issues, they'll often share them with me. I'm very well connected to the Human Rights and Equal Opportunity Commission. They're very willing to explain to me if they think we're not doing things well or what they're hearing on the ground. The Multicultural Commissioner, again, I meet with him on a regular basis. He will share with me also if there are issues. So there's a whole lot of conduits into Victoria Police from a whole lot of areas that give me a sense about whether we're doing this well or not. But I can understand how people in the street at Flemington can feel disengaged, disempowered, about feeling like they've got nowhere to go. What I need though is when people in the community believe that they've been dealt with poorly, they need to raise these issues, whether it's with our ethical standards department, whether it's through their community leaders, whether it's through their politicians, whether it's through the Human Rights Commission. All these are ways of feeding into the top end of the organisation that these problems are still going on.
And do you see any grants to improve the Victoria Police's own accountability mechanisms or complaint processes? Because a lot of the time they said pretty much every complaint that has been made against Victoria Police has ended up nowhere. Any thoughts on?
My understanding of the complaints is we've had 26 complaints since 2010, I think it is. Of those, 19 of those complaints have been either resolved through conciliation or they haven't been found to be proven. Now, again, the problem that we often have with these is it'll be a policeman or policewoman's word against a young person's word. I can understand the frustration of the young people when they find themselves in that situation, so it can be often difficult to determine one way or the other, and if that's the case, it's difficult to take appropriate action. Though, having said that, when we see these complaints, it's indicative. It can be indicative of a culture. But as I said before, there's 7 matters now that are moving through the criminal process. Again, I hear Daniel's frustration in how long does this take, and I too can get very, very frustrated when there's a suggestion that our people have done the wrong thing, and the processes, the systems, the legal barriers about working our way through this is sometimes mind-boggling and very frustrating.
Okay, we'll take a break, and when we get back, we'll talk about the way forward, the inquiry, and everything related to it. Thank you for watching the video. We hope you enjoyed it and that it provided you with a lot of information.